Hello, it's Stacey Ashley here, and hey, I'm in Sydney. We're back in lockdown. Welcome if you're watching live, and if you're watching the recording, thank you so much. Really appreciate your just being involved. The topic tonight is taking back control of your time and therefore your leadership impact. And the reason I'm focusing on this is because I'm hearing that it's a problem. Leaders want to make an impact. We know that regardless of the level, they're in it because they want to make a difference. They want to add value. They want to inspire and influence and all of those terrific things. And they feel like they're not able to do that to quite the same degree at the moment. So if you're watching live, I'd love to know, where are you in the world? What's your state of lockdown at the moment? And where are you working from? Let me just get rid of this banner here while people jump in. There we go. There we got a nice clean recording. So this is following on from conversations that I've been having. The reason I'm focusing on taking back control of your time is because when people say to me, I'm too busy, or I'm not getting enough time to focus on the things that are important, then it comes back to, well, okay, so what do you have control of, and what kind of choices are you making that perhaps are not supporting your goal of making a bigger difference, of having more impact? We all have 24 hours in a day. It's how you use them. And so what is it that maybe you need to do differently to support you being able, to make the difference, or more of a difference, or have more of an impact? So I'd love to know, is this something that's going on for you, or you're noticing or observing in terms of the people around you? And of course, we've got this changing set of conditions, which just, adds a layer of complexity, I guess, to the decisions and the choices that we have to make. I think it's pretty well understood that as a leader, there's only so many things you can do. You've got finite time, finite energy, finite attention span. And so you need to take those things and use them really kind of wisely. Invest yourself super wisely, so that you can make the biggest difference, add the most value, be productive, be efficient, be effective, support your team, and all of the things that are really important. So I would love, again, to know. Just pop it in the comments, and I'll come back to those who perhaps are watching the recording. Pop your comments in as well, because I'd love to hear from you. Is this something that you're noticing for yourself or others, that you feel like you don't have control of your time? So I want to share with you a few of the tips that come out of, I guess, my experiences from years ago as a productivity and performance consultant, but also in terms of the work that I've done over the last sort of 12 to 15 months, looking at the impacts of work from home, blended teams, all of the things that we've had to do in terms of adapting the way we work, and the impact that that's had on people's ability to actually feel like they're in control and making a difference. So let me just check that whether there's comments coming up. Sometimes they come through, sometimes they don't. Alrighty, so there is an article I wrote a couple of weeks ago on exactly this topic, which has got 20 tips in it, and I'll post those details as well, so that you can go and read that at your leisure when you want to. So what's the biggest stumbling block for you when it comes to being in control, not feeling busy and overwhelmed, but actually feeling like I'm making the choices about how I spend my time and where I focus my efforts and my attention? What's your biggest stumbling block? And while that's coming through, I just want to share with you a couple of really simple ideas to help you to get under control, or to take back control, or to even to just sustain. If you've got a good situation, what are the things that you need to do to actually maintain that control and keep it very protected, if you like? So the first one is, and I think that this has been really challenged over the last sort of 12 to 15 months, is set really clear boundaries about working time. When do you work? When don't you work? When do you start work? When do you finish work? Where do you work? Where don't you work? Have really clear boundaries, because otherwise everything just sort of bleeds together, especially if you find yourself, as I am, back working from home. There's no, I've got to leave the office now to get home. I'm already there. And so maybe I just keep on working. So I would love to know for you, is that something, that maybe you're challenged with? It's super important that we set clear boundaries. It's about discipline. It's about choosing how much of my time am I going to spend, at work or working, and how much, is my time for other things, because we need to have the integration of all of the things in our life. So just getting really clear with yourself about what are your boundaries around when and where and how often you work, and then also sharing that with the people around you, with your team, with your stakeholders and customers, with your boss, your leader, with your family, and anybody else that you need to make those agreements with, so that they know, when you're at work and when you're not, and when they can, interrupt you and when they can't, and all of those sorts of things. So that's the first tip, is get clear for yourself on your own boundaries around your time, and then, let everybody else know what those boundaries are as well. So that's number one. The second one, in terms of taking back control, is to really, I guess, stop being as reactive as so many people seem to be at the moment. Everyone I'm speaking to is like, I get urgent this and urgent that, and I've got all these messages, and I've got voicemails and emails and text messages and all this stuff just coming at me all the time. And so I'm always in this kind of responsive mode, rather than being in a proactive mode. And when we're always in responsive mode, we kind of feel like we're on the back foot rather than on the front foot, making the decisions about, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to do it. And again, you can feel really out of control, if that's the case. And so there's a few things, that you can do to minimize that kind of reactive component. The first, of course, is to make the clear decisions about boundaries. But then here's some really practical things that you can do to minimize that reactiveness. The first one is just around, if you're a phone user, or equally you can apply this to your devices and that sort of thing, is to be really clear about your availability to others. So when they contact you, so it might be on email, it might be on your phone, but be really clear about when you're available and how responsive you're going to be. So there's no expectation that you will immediately respond to a voicemail. You can say, I often, when I'm with clients, for example, I will say, I'll have a message on my phone which says that I'm with clients, and I'll be responding to any voicemails, tomorrow or after 4 p.m. So people know immediately that they're not going to hear back from me until that point in time. And so a couple of things can happen. One, they're not going to keep ringing me going, where are you? Because I've already told them. So it minimizes my voicemails. The second thing is that if they need a solution more quickly, or they need a response more quickly than at 4 p.m., they may not even leave a message. They might have to find another way, which might be, to send an email as an alternative to voicemail. It might be to contact a team member. It might be to actually solve the problem themselves. Right, but I get my time back because I don't have to solve the problem for them, because they probably didn't leave me a voicemail. And in fact, there's some studies which show when you are really specific about things like your voicemail message, I'll be returning calls after 4 p.m., I'll be returning calls on Wednesday, whatever you say, that the number of voicemails that are actually left for you reduces somewhere between 30 and 60%, which means a whole lot of stuff you don't have to do, you don't have to respond to. So that's time you get back, which is awesome. And you can do exactly the same thing on your email. You could actually have, if you have periods of time when you're unavailable, like you might be in a workshop for half a day or something like that, actually put your out of office on and be really clear about when you will be getting back to people, so you don't feel under pressure to be so responsive and having to monitor your email in the in the workshop or in the breaks or anything like that. It's really clear, and you give people a next step. Contact this person, or, I'll get back to you tomorrow. So take control of those sorts of things so you're not in this highly reactive mode. Other simple stuff. Turn all your notifications off unless you have something that, would indicate an emergency. But turn off your email notifications, turn off your beeps, turn off all of the little red bubbles that come up on your iPhone, because they're distractions and they take your control away, because they're interrupting you all the time and they're distracting you and refocusing your attention away from what you've chosen as important to whatever that stuff is. So minimize all of that distracting, reactive kind of stuff that you actually don't need to be monitoring. Now, there might be exceptions, like, for example, I would take a call from one of my children if it was in the middle of the school day, because they would only be calling me because there's something urgent. Yeah, or if the school contacted me, for example. But otherwise, if I am busy, focusing on a piece of work, or I'm with a client, I wouldn't pick up my phone ever. I mean, and I don't know about you, but I have contacted people. I've called them on the phone and they've picked it up and they've gone, I'm right in the middle of a meeting. I'm like, why did you pick up the phone? Okay, so take back control of your time. Make really clear decisions about, what you're going to respond to and not, and give people a next step. So if they, on your voicemail, on your email, all those sorts of things. And that means you don't have to be as reactive. You don't always have to be in this responsive, super reactive kind of cycle, I guess. So that's one side of the coin, of that kind of reactive, responsive. The other side, though, is you have to make really clear decisions. And I would love to know from you, for those that are watching live, or if you're watching the recording, I'd love to know, which of these things do you already use, or which are you going to take and actually put into practice to help you take more control of your time? Okay, so the next thing I want to share with you is going from that reactive space to actually getting on the front foot. And that's about making really clear choices about where you will spend your time, what you will focus on, what is important to you. Leaders tell me all the time they want to make a difference. They want to make an impact. I'm just going to pause there for a minute because I can see that there's some buffering going on, and I'm just going to plug my phone in and see if I can hotspot, because this is not good. Okay. Let's see if that helps, the buffering, because that doesn't make for a great live when we don't actually have it live. Okay, so getting onto the front foot means making really clear decisions about what is important. And so what that means is that you need to choose, where are you going to focus? So what are the important things that you can make a difference to, that you can add value to, that require your, unique genius to be applied to, not things that your team members can do, not things that, are just busy work for you rather than really impactful work. So you want to work on high impact. It could be high impact with a little bit of urgency because you should have done it earlier, or high impact that you're planning and completing in plenty of time. And so part of that is actually understanding what are the key priorities that you need to deliver on in alignment with, your objectives, the team's objectives, the organization's objectives that support their mission and purpose and vision and all of those things. So get really clear on that, and then make really clear choices about where you will spend your time. Project A, project B, project C. There shouldn't be too many priorities because, again, you're a fixed resource. You've only got so much of you to share around. So focus on your priorities, and once you've determined them, then you actually need to decide how much of your time will you spend on them each week, month, quarter. And then you need to allocate time in your calendar to do that important, impactful work. If you feel like you're out of control, you need to take back control. And one of the biggest things you can do to take back control is to control your calendar and the contents of your calendar. Your calendar is not a repository for other people's meetings. Your calendar is you. It's what you're going to do. It's what you're going to focus on. It's the difference that you're going to make. And if you don't put your important work, your priorities into your calendar, then they won't happen. And if your important priorities don't happen and you don't feel like you're making progress and you're not focused on those things, then you'll feel out of control because you're not making progress with the important stuff. And I hear that a lot, particularly when we've got people trying to juggle business as usual, big projects. Oh, by the way, let's throw in a lockdown, or let's add another big project over the top. So you need to be really clear about where you're going to focus your time, those specific things. When I was researching last year, I did a whole lot of research about leadership during emergency and disaster and catastrophe and all of those sorts of things. And one of the things that really great leaders do during those periods of time, stressful, big changing conditions, all of that sort of stuff. And I guess, what I learned when I was a productivity consultant is great leadership requires you to focus specifically and only on the important. So if you want to get back under control and you want to make a difference, then what are your most important 1, 2, 3 things? That's what you focus on. That's what you put time into your diary for, so that you can actually make progress with that work and get back under control. And combined with that, of course, because those are the things that you're saying yes to, you need to say no to some other things which are not the most important things, that are the busy work, that are distractions. They might be interesting, but if they don't contribute to the core purpose of what you're there to do as a leader, then you need to say no most of the time to those things in a nice way, but no. So I'd love to hear from you. What's one thing that perhaps you can implement, take a step forward to be able to take back control of your time and have more impact? I'm just going to check my notes to see if there's anything else I really wanted to share with you. There are so many things. Oh, let me just share this one more thing. This is related to your calendar still and what you say yes and no to. What I find is that people do have a lot of meetings in their calendar, particularly when we're in Zoom world or Teams world, whatever world you're in, or Google Meet, is they have a lot of meetings in their calendar. And when I ask them about what's the meeting about, what's their particular role in the meeting, what's the purpose of the meeting, it's not always clear. And so my question always is, all right, so you've made a decision to accept the meeting. What prompted you to do that? If you don't know what your role is, what your contribution is in a meeting, why would you go? If there isn't a clear agenda and purpose for the meeting, why would you go? Yeah, you're a valuable resource. You must invest yourself wisely. So if you don't have that information, ask the questions about what makes it important for you to go to the meeting. What is the role that you will have in the meeting? What's expected of you in that meeting? Are you there to get information? Are you there to give information? Are you there to make a decision? Or are you there to do some work, solve a problem, brainstorm, collaborate in some way? And if you're not there to do any of those things, then what makes it important for you to be there? And so those are the kinds of questions that you need to be asking to determine whether you say yes or no to a meeting invitation. And that helps you, again, to take back control of your time and use your calendar wisely. That is the representation of you. So should you be in that meeting? Is it sufficiently important or not? Because you've got other important work to do that you've already decided on. So that helps you to make good choices about how to create the most impact from you, where you invest yourself and your time. So I'm going to wrap up here, because I've downloaded a whole lot of tips to help you take back control and have more impact. And I'd really encourage you to implement at least one of them. They're all pretty practical and easy to implement. And then you can get more information about the whole 20 tips in my recent article, which is exactly that. First, lead yourself, 20 tips to take back control of your time. So we talked about setting clear boundaries about where you work, when you work, and when you don't. We talked about you being really clear about only focusing on the important, about identifying what that is and investing yourself wisely in those things. We talked about minimizing distractions and notifications and interruptions, so you get out of the reactive space and into the proactive space, and that you set clear time in your calendar for the work that you will do, the important work that you'll do. And you're very, what's the right word? You when you consider meetings and which ones you'll go to, you're really, really clear about which meetings are important for you to attend and which ones are not, and therefore you will say no to. Because saying no to something means you can then say yes to something that's important. And that's a really powerful skill to have in your toolkit. So I hope that's been useful. I'd love to hear from you. I can see Anya Nula. I hope I've kind of said that right. So notifications are distracting me while I'm in a meeting. Yeah. My question is, you shouldn't have your device where you can actually see it when you're in a meeting, because it's distracting. So turn it over, turn it off, put it on silent, turn the notifications off, all of those things, so that you can focus on what's important. Nero says, when starting the workday, spending 15 to 30 minutes to pick the top 2 to 3 topics to put in today's calendar time. Absolutely. You can also do it for the week ahead, so that you're well planned in advance. So yeah, but great suggestion. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to leave you there. Check the comments for the links. Sorry, check the post for the links, the link to the article. The other thing I wanted to share really quickly is that I've just offered out as a gift the ebook version of my latest book, which was published in February, actually, Show Up 21. Because we're in and out of lockdown in Australia and, throughout the world, there's so much change that's still going on, so much uncertainty, so much, instability. It's really important that leaders continue to show up this year to create certainty and stability through their leadership, so people can trust that you will continue to lead. And so I wanted to help people do that. And so I'm basically giving my book away. So it's got 5 great principles to help you first lead yourself and show up and continue to show up and demonstrate self-leadership in a sustainable way, so that you can continue to be the leader that you want to be. So I'm going to drop the details into the comments, or you can see the post just before this one, which has got all the details about how to access that gift of my book, Show Up 21. And please share it with your friends and your colleagues, because I would love for as many people as possible to feel well supported, well resourced, so that they continue to be the leader they want to be, because, we all need leadership right now. And so the more people that feel equipped and supported, the better. So grab yourself a copy, share it around, share the access to everyone so that they can get a copy as well. Shirley, great to see you there. Thank you. I'm glad that the ideas are resonating with you. And I think we'll call it a wrap for tonight. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you to those who are watching the recording. Please pop your comments in. I would love to hear from you and what's been most useful. And I'd love to hear how you go implementing even one idea that is going to help you to take back control of your time, so that you can elevate your own leadership. You can elevate the impact that you have and the difference that you make, which as leaders is what we all want to be doing. So again, have a really great night and or day or afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And I'll be back, in a couple of weeks, if not before. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the meantime. Bye for now.